He wrote one of the most recognizable rock songs of the 1970s. His biggest album reached the Billboard Top 10. Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan, Jackson Browne, Linda Ronstadt, R.E.M., Tom Petty, and countless musicians admired his songwriting, even when the record-buying public moved on. But the people closest to him feared him. Alcohol turned him violent and unpredictable. His wife later described assaults and threats. He reportedly fired guns indoors, threatened suicide, and left his family wondering which version of him would walk through the door. On stage, he transformed killers, addicts, mercenaries, and broken lives into songs that were witty, melodic, and unforgettable. Off stage, the damage was no longer a story. Then, he stopped drinking. He tried to stay sober, but the commercial hits became fewer. He kept writing and recording. By 2000, he had released an album called Life'll Kill Ya. 2 years later, another album cover showed him riding inside a hearse. Then doctors diagnosed him with inoperable cancer. They believed he had only months to live. The hit records are real. The violence is documented. The 17 years of sobriety are real. The terminal diagnosis is real. This is the story of Warren Zevon. But the strangest chapter of his story would not happen while he was alive. It would happen 22 years after his death. Chapter 1. The Piano. That stayed Warren William Zevon was born on January 24, 1947, in Chicago, Illinois. But the story that shaped him unfolded in Los Angeles, where music and violence became intertwined almost from the beginning. His father, William Zevon, had originally been William Zivotofsky, a Russian Jewish immigrant who worked as a bookmaker connected to the gambling world around Los Angeles crime figure Mickey Cohen. Friends knew him by the nickname Stumpy. Warren's mother, Beverly Cope, came from a very different background, an English-descended Mormon family, and the marriage was troubled from the start. William drifted in and out of the household, leaving long stretches where Warren never knew whether his father would return. Then came Christmas of 1956. 9-year-old Warren watched his father arrive carrying a Chickering upright piano, reportedly won during a poker game. It should have been a memorable Christmas present. Instead, it became one of the defining moments of his childhood. Beverly wanted nothing to do with the piano. She reportedly called it a headache machine, and the disagreement escalated into a violent confrontation. According to later family accounts, William threw a carving knife toward her. It missed. Moments later, he walked out. The piano did not. For Warren, music did not arrive wrapped in comfort or encouragement. It arrived in the middle of fear, anger, and abandonment. Every time he sat at that keyboard, he was touching the one thing his father had left behind. The instability continued after William disappeared. Beverly's later partner was also described as physically abusive, and alcohol remained part of the household. Home offered very little security. Music offered structure. At the piano, every note had a purpose. Every chord resolved somewhere. For a boy growing up surrounded by unpredictable adults, that sense of order mattered. His talent developed quickly. By 1960, when Warren was only 13, he was making occasional visits to the home of legendary composer Igor Stravinsky, where he was briefly exposed to modern classical music through Stravinsky and conductor Robert Kraft. He was never the composer's formal student, despite later myths, but the experience gave him something few future rock musicians could claim. During those same years, he picked up the guitar and absorbed everything else he could find, from folk and blues to country, rhythm and blues, and rock and roll. What emerged was unlike most young songwriters. Instead of writing about teenage romance, Warren filled notebooks with gamblers, drifters, criminals, broken families, and people making terrible decisions they already knew they would regret. Years later, he would transform his parents' marriage into Mama Couldn't Be Persuaded.
Which I doubt they will. And my mama couldn't be persuaded when they pleaded with her daughter, don't marry that gambling man.
Many listeners heard it as another well-written character sketch. It wasn't. It was family history set to music. The violence, the gambling, the disappearances, and the broken promises never really left him. They simply found new disguises inside his songs. Before those songs made him famous, though, Warren had to learn one difficult lesson. Talent alone wasn't enough. Chapter 2. Stephen Lime, the man nobody noticed. By the mid-1960s, Warren had his first real opportunity. He teamed up with high school friend Violet Santangelo, who performed as Cybele. Warren adopted the stage name Stephen Lime, and together they became Lime and Cybele, a name reportedly styled in lowercase because of his admiration for poet E.E. Cummings. The duo signed with White Whale Records, the same company associated with the Turtles. Their first single, Follow Me, reached number 65 on the Billboard chart in April 1966. For a teenager, that looked like the beginning of something much bigger. It wasn't. Their next release, a version of Bob Dylan's If You Gotta Go, Go Now,
listen to me, baby, there's something you must see. I wanna
failed to catch on, and the partnership quickly faded. Warren stayed around White Whale, writing songs for other artists instead of building his own career. Several of those songs were recorded by the Turtles, including Outside Chance.
You can try to please me, but it won't be easy.
And Like the Seasons.
And I know you had to go, you've got your reasons. Still.
Another composition eventually appeared in the 1969 film Midnight Cowboy, after She Quit Me was rewritten as He Quit Me.
It wasn't the queen of diamonds that I preferred.
The work kept coming, the recognition didn't. That pattern followed Warren into the next decade. In 1970, he finally released his first solo album, Wanted Dead or Alive.
Dead or alive, I'm wanted everywhere. I've got to survive. They say I am.
Almost nobody noticed. The album sold poorly and disappeared with little impact, leaving Warren exactly where he had started. Instead of headlining tours, he found steady work behind the scenes as keyboard player, arranger, musical coordinator, and band leader for the Everly Brothers. It was respected work. It simply wasn't his dream. Even after Don Everly and Phil Everly split, Warren continued helping each brother on separate projects. He became the dependable musician everyone wanted around the studio, solving musical problems while someone else's name appeared on the album cover. That was becoming the story of his career. He could write, he could arrange, he could perform, he could rescue other people's records. His own career remained stuck. By 1975, both his professional and personal lives had reached another crossroads. Warren and his wife, Crystal Zevon, left California and settled temporarily in Sitges, Spain, where he found work playing at the Dubliner Bar. It wasn't a glamorous reinvention, it was survival. Yet that small club produced one of the biggest turning points of his life. There he met David Lindell, a former mercenary whose stories fascinated him. Together they wrote Roland the Headless Thompson Gunner.
Roland was a warrior from the land of the midnight sun with a Thompson gun for
A song unlike anything on American radio, mixing war, revenge, dark humor, and folklore into one unforgettable story. For the first time, Warren wasn't trying to sound like anyone else. He had finally discovered his own voice. The timing could not have been better. Back in California, one musician refused to believe Warren Zevon's career was over. His name was Jackson Browne. Chapter 3. Jackson Browne brings him home. When Warren Zevon returned from Spain in 1975, he was not coming home as a star. His first solo album had failed. His years with the Everly Brothers had kept him working, but mostly behind other people's names. Even his best songs had done more for other singers than they had for him. The person who changed that was Jackson Browne. Browne believed Zevon deserved another chance and helped persuade David Geffen's Asylum Records to sign him. According to Crystal Zevon's recollection, Warren received the invitation in Spain through a postcard telling him a new recording opportunity was waiting in California. For Zevon, it was more than another contract. It was a rescue. Browne agreed to produce the album and surrounded him with musicians from the center of the Los Angeles music scene. Lindsey Buckingham, Stevie Nicks, Don Henley, Glenn Frey, Bonnie Raitt, Phil Everly, and Carl Wilson all contributed. That list alone showed how much faith other musicians had in him. The album, titled Warren Zevon, arrived in 1976.
I saw a werewolf with a Chinese menu in his hand, walking through the streets of Soho in the rain.
Its sound was polished, but the people inside the songs were barely holding together. Frank and Jesse James recast famous outlaws as damaged American folk heroes.
On a small Missouri farm back when the West was young, two boys learned to rope and ride.
Carmelita followed an addict trapped by his own need. The French inhaler turned a failed relationship into a bitter character study.
How you gonna make your way in the world when you weren't cut out for working?
While Muhammad's radio imagined lonely people listening for comfort that never quite came.
So their anger and resentment flow, the tonic make you water.
Then there was Desperados Under the Eaves.
I was sitting in the Hollywood Hawaiian Hotel. I was staring.
The song grew from Zevon's time at the Hollywood Hawaiian Hotel, where he had once stayed while broke. One account says he escaped through a window because he could not pay the bill. After his career improved, he returned to settle the debt, only for the hotel to accept copies of his album instead. It was a perfect Zevon story. He had recorded an album with some of the biggest names in California rock, yet he was still paying an old hotel bill with records nobody had bought. Carl Wilson helped build the Beach Boys-style harmonies on Desperados Under the Eaves. The result sounded warm and sunlit, even as Zevon sang about panic, debt, and collapse. That contrast became one of his signatures. He could make despair sound beautiful. Critics responded to the album, but sales remained modest. Once again, musicians understood what Zevon was doing before the public did. Then, his songs began moving beyond him. Linda Ronstadt recorded several of his compositions, including Hasten Down the Wind,
Understand. She takes his hand.
Carmelita, and Poor Poor Pitiful Me. Her version of Poor Poor Pitiful Me
He can't find the one who was his.
reached number 31 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1978. At last, Warren Zevon's writing was reaching a mass audience. The problem was that most listeners were still hearing it in someone else's voice. Still, Ronstadt's success gave Asylum a reason to fund another album. Browne returned as producer, joined by guitarist Waddy Wachtel, and this time the songs were sharper, faster, and easier to sell. The album was Excitable Boy, released on January 18, 1978. It contained murderers, mercenaries, lawyers, betrayal, and a werewolf wandering through London in search of Chinese food. One song would make Warren Zevon famous. It would also trap him inside a joke he had never meant to become. Chapter 4, the hit that became a trap. Excitable Boy reached number 8 on the Billboard album chart, the highest position of Warren Zevon's career. The record included Lawyers, Guns, and Money, Roland the Headless Thompson Gunner, Accidentally Like a Martyr, Johnny Strikes Up the Band, and the title track. Together, they showed the full range of his writing, from political farce and historical violence to heartbreak and black comedy. The hit was Werewolves of London. The recording featured Mick Fleetwood on drums and John McVie on bass. Its piano figure was simple, the chorus arrived instantly, and the lyrics moved from horror to fashion to absurdity without ever explaining themselves. The single reached number 21 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1978 and stayed in the American Top 40 for 6 weeks. It became Zevon's biggest hit under his own name. It also became the song people expected every time he walked onto a stage. Audiences waited for the howl. Radio wanted another novelty record. The title made him look like a comic performer, even though much of Excitable Boy dealt with murder, war, betrayal, and emotional ruin. The hit opened doors. It did not stabilize the man behind it. By then, Zevon's drinking had become more dangerous. Accounts from Crystal Zevon, friends, and associates described threats, assaults, damaged rooms, disappearances, firearms, and long periods when alcohol came before his family. One account places his drinking during the period around the 1976 album at roughly a quart of vodka a day. The exact amount comes from personal recollection, but the larger pattern is clear. His behavior frightened people. Crystal later described episodes in which Warren assaulted and threatened her while drunk. He reportedly discharged guns indoors and made suicide threats. These were not harmless stories about a difficult artist. People close to him were being hurt. The contradiction became impossible to ignore. On stage, Zevon appeared sharp, funny, and fully in command. His songs turned violence into controlled scenes with beginnings, twists, and endings. Offstage, alcohol stripped that control away. The violence became real. The childhood pattern was repeating itself. His father had brought a piano into the house during a violent confrontation. Warren had used that instrument to build a career. Now, after finally reaching the Billboard charts, he was bringing fear into his own home. Success did not stop the decline. In 1980, Zevon released Bad Luck Streak in Dancing School. The album included Jeannie Needs a Shooter, written with Bruce Springsteen, and Empty-Handed Heart, featuring Linda Ronstadt. The single A Certain Girl reached number 57. That same year, he released Stand in the Fire, recorded across 5 nights at the Roxy Theater in Los Angeles. The live album captured a different Zevon. He was forceful, quick, and commanding, driving the songs harder than he had in the studio. On stage, he still sounded like a man with complete control over the room. Commercially, though, the momentum was fading. The albums that followed never matched Excitable Boy. His reputation among musicians stayed strong, but the audience narrowed. The record industry had found it easier to sell the werewolf than the songwriter who created it. By the middle of the 1980s, the second chance Jackson Browne had helped create was slipping away. The money was not enough. The praise was not enough. Even sobriety would not be enough to give him back the career he had lost. First, his friends and family had to place him in a room and tell him exactly what he had become. Chapter 5: Sobriety Without a Comeback. By the middle of the 1980s, Warren Zevon's drinking had damaged his marriage, frightened the people around him, and helped stall a career that was already losing momentum. Friends, relatives, and associates finally stepped in because they no longer believed he could stop on his own. During the intervention, Zevon was brought into a room where people close to him read prepared statements describing what his drinking had done. They laid out the threats, broken trust, lost time, and fear. The point was not humiliation. It was to leave him nowhere to hide. His sobriety date was March 19, 1986. He remained sober for roughly 17 years. Sobriety changed his life, but it did not erase the damage or restore the career he had lost. It gave him the chance to work again. It did not guarantee that the public would come back. In 1987, he released Sentimental Hygiene. The album brought him together with Peter Buck, Mike Mills, and Bill Berry of R.E.M. Their playing gave the record a harder, more direct sound, while the title track faced the idea of cleaning up without pretending the past could be washed away. Musicians rallied around him. The wider audience remained limited. That pattern had followed Zevon for years. Other artists heard the depth in his songs, critics praised the writing, and loyal fans stayed with him. None of it returned him to the commercial level of Excitable Boy. His work with the members of R.E.M. continued. In 1990, they released an album under the name Hindu Love Gods, built from loose, informal sessions and rough-edged covers. The project did not change his commercial position. Zevon followed it with Mr. Bad Example in 1991, Learning to Flinch in 1993, and Mutineer in 1995. Sobriety had not turned him into a gentler songwriter. His songs still dealt with danger, guilt, failure, violence, and people who understood the consequences only after it was too late. The difference was that he could now complete the work without destroying every relationship around it. One person continued giving him a national platform. David Letterman kept inviting Zevon onto television even when he no longer had a current hit to promote. Warren performed, sat for interviews, and occasionally filled in for Paul Schaefer as band leader. Their connection made sense. Letterman understood Zevon's dry humor and never treated the songs as novelty records. He gave Warren room to be funny without reducing him to a joke. Those appearances also revealed how far Zevon had moved from the center of the music business. A songwriter who once placed an album in the Billboard Top 10 now depended on the loyalty of a television host to remain visible to a national audience. Then came Life'll Kill Ya in 2000. The title sounded like another Warren Zevon punchline, but the songs carried more age and wear than his earlier work. My Shit's Fucked Up faced physical decline with almost no disguise.
Well, I went to the doctor and said I'm feeling kind of rough. Let me break it to you, son.
His version of Back in the High Life Again stripped away the confidence of the original and made the promise of recovery sound uncertain. 2 years later, he released My Ride's Here. The cover showed him sitting inside a hearse. Death had always been one of Zevon's favorite subjects. He wrote about it as violence, comedy, history, threat, accident, and fate. For decades, he had treated mortality as material. Then, during the summer of 2002, it stopped being theoretical. Zevon played his final full concert on August 9, 2002, at the Edmonton Folk Music Festival in Canada. According to his official site, he closed the event before an audience of roughly 14,000 people. Nothing had been publicly announced. Within weeks, doctors diagnosed him with inoperable pleural mesothelioma. Warren Zevon had spent his career writing about people who received the worst possible news too late. Now he had become one of them. Chapter 6. The final album and the guitar's return. The diagnosis comes in August 2002. Pleural mesothelioma, inoperable. The cancer is growing in the tissue around his lungs. Doctors believe he has only months. The source of the asbestos exposure is never established. Zevon has avoided doctors for roughly 20 years. By the time shortness of breath and chest pain force him to seek help, the disease is already advanced. He does not begin a public battle against the diagnosis. He begins an album. The project becomes The Wind, recorded with producer and longtime collaborator Jorge Calderón. Friends from every stage of Zevon's career join the sessions, including Jackson Browne, Bruce Springsteen, Don Henley, Tom Petty, Emmylou Harris, Ry Cooder, Dwight Yoakam, and Billy Bob Thornton. The deadline is no longer a figure of speech. Zevon sings, he plays, he revises. He works around his declining strength. Bruce Springsteen sings and plays guitar on Disorder in the House. The album closes with Keep Me in Your Heart, co-written with Jorge Calderón.
The shadows are falling, and I'm running out of breath. In your heart.
There is no killer in the song, no mercenary, no joke to hide behind. It asks the people left behind to remember him after he is gone. Before the album is finished, Zevon returns to Late Show with David Letterman on October 30th, 2002. There are no other guests. Letterman gives almost the entire broadcast to him. Zevon speaks openly about the cancer. He jokes about avoiding doctors and admits that the strategy did not work. Letterman asks what he understands more clearly now. Zevon talks about appreciating ordinary time with music and family. Then comes the line that follows him after death, enjoy every sandwich. He performs Mutineer. He performs Genius. He performs Roland the Headless Thompson Gunner. It is his final public appearance. After the taping, Zevon places his guitar inside its case and gives it to David Letterman. Letterman later recalls that Warren asked him to take care of it. They embrace. Letterman cries. Warren goes back to work. He lives long enough to meet the twin children born to his daughter Ariel in June 2003. He lives long enough to see The Wind released on August 26, 2003. 12 days later, September 7, 2003, his home in Los Angeles. Warren Zevon dies from complications of pleural mesothelioma. He is 56. The album continues without him. At the 2004 Grammy Awards, The Wind wins Best Contemporary Folk Album. Disorder in the House, recorded with Bruce Springsteen, wins Best Rock Performance by a duo or group with vocals. They are Zevon's first Grammy victories. Both arrive after his death. Recognition keeps coming late. In 2023, he is nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but is not inducted. 2 years later, the Hall selects him for its Musical Influence Award. On November 8, 2025, David Letterman walks onto the Rock Hall stage in Los Angeles to present Warren's tribute. He brings the guitar. For more than 20 years, the instrument Zevon handed him after that final television appearance has remained in Letterman's care. Now Letterman passes it to Dave Kuning of The Killers. Kuning plays it during Lawyers, Guns, and Money, joined by Zevon's longtime guitarist Waddy Wachtel. The guitar is back beneath stage lights. The man who gave it away is not. Warren's first important instrument entered his life during a violent family argument. His final one left his hands during a quiet goodbye between two friends. The piano stayed when his father walked out. The guitar returned after Warren was gone. Warren Zevon spent his life turning chaos into songs that were funny, frightening, and painfully honest. Recognition often reached him after the moment had passed, but the work outlasted the delay. If this story moved you, subscribe for more biographies of the artists who shaped rock history.